Today, our writing series is focusing in on how we can support persuasive writing in our K-3 classrooms. So that's a fun one. I think it's one of those things kids are innately so skilled and gifted at, is the art of persuasion. So tapping into that gift and using it with their writing opportunities is a nice way we can have some fun with their writing. So the resources for today's session, along with the previous workshops in this series, are all found on our Padlet, which you would have received the link to. So the handouts for all of the series, all the workshops in this series are there on the left. We've added some new ones, and you can see in that additional resources column, the red column, we've got a writing interest survey that you can do with your students, and then a PDF, a nice printable prompts for the elements of writing. And then another one below that that talks about the comprehensive writing activities and levels of support. So it breaks down, it's just a 2-pager, and it breaks down what the educator is doing and what the students are doing at all of the different levels of writing to, with, and by our students, if you're liking or looking for a little more support on what that can look like with some examples and guidelines. So please check that out. That will stay up after our series is finished, and we hope it's a good collection of resources for you all in one place. So today our focus, as it has been for the past couple of sessions, the same flow to it, we'll be looking at mini lessons, activities, and routines to explore that writing to, with, and by our students. And this time the focus is on that persuasive type of writing. So looking at opinion writing and personal responses, including something really fun, which is reviews. And in doing this and setting our students up for success, we're building up their identity as writers by immersing them in the steps involved in the writing process and teaching them those specific writing behaviors and strategies that they can use to create a variety of texts. And next week, we'll dig into more specifically doing some writing about what we read and some fun that we can have with that. So that'll be our final session in this 4-part series next Wednesday. And this has been at the launch of all of our series, and we like to anchor our focus and our activities and our work in what the developmental stages of writing are. As we said last week, if you were with us then, it's so important to know what we're expecting our students to be able to do at each of these stages on the writing development path. So from emergent to early, and then to transitional towards fluent, skilled writing. So it's important for us to know what they're able to do, their understanding and their mastery at each of these stages, so that we can nurture and support it. But it's also important to know what's next for them in terms of supporting them in where we want them to go, and what we're modeling and demonstrating in the classroom and bringing attention to with our intentional conversations. And so when we look at the Ministry of Education and those writing performance standards, looking at where does persuasive writing fit in there to the ELA curriculum and to writing in particular. So for grade 1, it's considered writing from experience. So writing where students record information they've acquired, and just as common, if not more common, talking about their experiences, their feelings, their opinions, likes and dislikes, and observations. And in grade 1, you see here in the example, discussing and brainstorming are part of the writing process because they still need that additional scaffolded support. They're not ready to be truly independent with just diving into writing. So there's a lot of conversation, there's a lot of demonstration, there's a lot of whole class work that we do together to get them primed to then go and do some independent writing about experiences that are known to them, and opinions and feelings and things they've experienced or seen directly. So the mental output isn't going to having to think about things, but it's sharing their opinions and thoughts and feelings about experiences. So and then in grade 2, that becomes writing to communicate ideas and information. So it's a little bit more complex, but the same thing. It's expressing their connections to personal experiences, ideas, likes, and dislikes. So here, it might be writing a letter to convince a story character to do or don't do something. Like if you're trying to advise the pigeon not to stay up late or eat the hot dog, or convincing an audience why one thing is better than another. So those are just some examples of what that might look like in grade 2. And then in grade 3, it's still writing to communicate ideas and information, but again, it's a little more sophisticated. It's a variety and they're clear. So a variety of clear personal writing and representations that express responses and opinions about experiences. And now also it's adding on and texts. So they could be responding to a book that they've read or a story that they've heard, as well as personal experiences that they've had, such as things there we've noted in blue, giving a review, which we'll do in a little bit, of a restaurant, a movie, a video game, a book, a holiday destination, food, you choose. So, and I know last week someone asked about kindergarten, and so there aren't performance standards for writing in kindergarten, but if we look at the English Language Arts curriculum, what does it say about what kindergartners are doing? And I wanted to pick your brain here and have you guess a little bit. So what do you think are some phrases or keywords or skills that in kindergarten we are wanting to see our kindergartners do when it comes to writing, speaking, and representing, thinking that we're laying the groundwork and the foundation for getting them ready to become more proficient and able writers as they move through the year and into grade 1. So what are some things that might jump out at you if they're not able to do traditional writing yet? Any brave souls have some keywords or phrases or skills they think we might be nurturing in kindergarten? Thank you, Janet. Yeah, drawing pictures, saying what's in the pictures, scribble a message, drawing. Yes, speaking about drawing, fabulous. Oral storytelling, you've got it. Pretending to make lists, yeah. Creating things.
Creating with Lego.
Yeah, nice. Any other thoughts in there? So I like what you touched on. So I'll just reveal what the curriculum does say. And you've touched on a lot of it already just with those few comments. So, and if you notice there at the top, I've got those 2 words in blue font instead of black. So students are expected individually and collaboratively to be able to. So some of these things they may not be able to do on their own. That's part of the baby steps. So exchanging ideas and perspectives, that's obviously very centered in oral language and talking and listening. So that verbal sharing, and then using language to identify, create, and share. Just what we've talked about, which is nice for the persuasive ideas, feelings, opinions, and preferences. So if they're creating stories or texts, it's helping them to deepen their awareness about self, family, and community. So that world that the stories are focused on are things the students have personal, firsthand lived experience with. It's in their day-to-day life. And that's a great starting point. And then starting to think about how they can plan and create stories for different purposes. So this could be doing some stuff with print, but a lot of it is communication and with play, like Anna suggested with Lego. So maybe using manipulatives, puppets, storyboards, toys, or digital tools. And the ministry also defines texts. They break it down into oral texts, written, visual, and digital. So you see here, there's very little of it yet. They're not quite ready for the traditional print that we think of in terms of writing, but all of this is getting them primed for their understanding of story, their exposure to language, and the practice at telling stories and sharing their opinions and their ideas and doing it in the ways that are developmentally appropriate for them in K. So time and time again, that repetition and exposure to the read alouds and talking about story elements and plots, beginning, middle, end, all of that stuff, having them act things out. So very powerful learning for them before we're getting it down on paper. And part of the beauty with persuasive writing is it's such a natural tie to critical thinking, because if you want to defend your argument or assert an argument, state your opinion, you've got to back it up with evidence, anecdotes, data, examples, details. So it's kind of like being in a debate club. You formulate your argument, your opinion, for example, whether cats are better than dogs. Okay, that's great. You think that, that's your argument, but what is your opinion based on? So give me some evidence, give me some facts. And so it supports and nurtures a critical thinking piece while also supporting a writing skill for our students. So we'll start as we have the past few weeks looking at writing to children and showing them what persuasive writing can look like by demonstrating and modeling that. And again, this is something that doesn't just happen once in the year and then we hope they get it. It's done again and again and again. We're showing them what to do with persuasive writing. We're thinking aloud, talking aloud, revealing what our thoughts, actions, decisions, and our mindset is as someone doing some persuasive writing. So we're not just telling what we want to write, but showing how we're going to write it with some examples that are appropriate and maybe a stretch goal for them, but it's attainable and relatable for them to see and give them something to aim for. All right, so we are going to have you do a little sample of some opinion or review writing. And we're going to give you just a minute and a half. I'll start some music in a second, but I'll set this up for you first. So think about your favorite restaurant, bakery, or coffee shop and convince all of us why it's so great. So going back to look, this is taken from those lovely colorful Post-its we saw. Start with an attention-grabbing opening. Write your opinion, give lots of reasons, add details. That talk back piece was some people might say, but I still think that. And then those sparkly words. So, I mean, we've only got 90 seconds, so we'll do what we can to come up with the frame for that. But I think you probably all have a favorite restaurant, bakery, or coffee shop in mind that you could write a few sentences about. So if you can write 4 to 6 sentences, you can follow these bullet points here and convince us why your place is the best. So you can give it a little shout out. Let's get these businesses maybe some free advertising. I will take 90 seconds and then share. All right. Thanks, Ray. Melissa, wonderful. Oh, Theo's, is that the one in Penticton? That's legendary. Chelsea, Super Quail. Oh, thank you so much. Radio Cafe.
This is making me super hungry.
Yeah, Neverland Tea Salon. Yes. Chapino's. Oh my gosh. Yes. I think you should eat a cinnamon bun for the most important meal of the day. Some people say eat eggs, but that's weird. I love it. I love it. Oh, thanks, Catherine.
We have lots of bakeries highlighted. Awesome.
Catherine, you'll have to say, is that in Squamish? Or Whistler, I wonder. Thank you so much. We'll show you later near the end of the session. You can save the chat box if you'd like to save it to your computer, and then you could show your restaurant bakery review to your students. You could show them some other ones, and these could be part of the mentor text that you show them as something to reach for if you wanted to try this with them in the next couple of weeks. So thank you to everybody that shared.
Okay, thank you, everyone. As I mentioned, this is like a pre-dinner kind of hunger that I'm feeling after hearing all of those wonderful reviews. And I'm sad to say that I do not have a bakery close to me. I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing, but it's a special treat every time I'm close to one. Okay, so an important thing that we can consider and focus on when we're working with students is if we want them to be better writers, then we need to invite them into our writing community and do writing with them, which is what we would do through interactive writing. So when we compose writing together, we're inviting our students into the writing community, but also to become co-authors with us and really notice different aspects of the process of writing and notice the details of written language. And it's also, if we consider the gradual release of responsibility model, it is moving our students more towards independence. We're kind of at the guided practice area of writing with our students when we are doing interactive writing. So let's see what this could look like in the realm of persuasive writing. So as Lisa mentioned earlier, a wonderful way to engage our students is thinking about we should get a cat and we should get a dog. So having those really clear titles of what we are trying to prove, and then a wonderful way is to just break it down really easily into these are the reasons that we should get a cat. And the reasons are answers to the question why. So that's an easy way for our students to think about it if it's an answer to the question why. And then, of course, having those facts that support the reasons. So this is, as I mentioned, an easy way to do that. With an interactive write, it could be more like we are talking with our students, coming up with ideas, coming up with information, because we're writing to communicate that information and deciding upon a class composition of the positives of having a cat and the positives of having a dog, so that we can start there with the idea that we now have the thing that we're trying to prove, and we have a lot of reasons, and we can work on that through our transition to some interactive writing, because now we can do some writing together and we can make that writing look however we want to. We could work on paragraph form. We could work on, lots of different posters and lots of different ways that we could do a script for a podcast, tons of different things that we could do together in that realm. Okay. So what's your opinion? Think of something that you feel strongly enough about that you'd like to convince others. And maybe it's one of the things that we have mentioned here, like hosting versus attending a party, or appetizers versus desserts, all of those different things. Perhaps it's there, perhaps it's something else, but we're going to give you a minute to choose one thing, either from the list or from your own list, that you would be most keen to write about and share your opinion, and also 2 reasons in the chat box. So you'll have a minute to do this. So write fast and we'll see what comes up in a minute. Okay, everyone, what do you think? Love to see your opinions and your reasons in the chat box. What do we have? Oh, I definitely agree with you, Lisa. I would definitely rather attend a party than hosting it, because it is a lot of work without having to vacuum. Absolutely. Okay, summer vacations are better because you don't have to pack as much. Yes, absolutely. Definitely appetizers, more variety of flavors. I'm with you, Catherine. I am a big fan of appetizers as well. Okay, so we have nature walk. Exercise is so good for you and you get a dose of fresh air for sure. But reading a book is pretty lovely as well. But I'll go with you, Melissa, there. Hosting a party allows you to be creative because I need to be creative. Okay, Anna, we're all coming to your house. You can host us and we don't have to vacuum. Love it. Okay, thank you so much for participating in that. Okay, so another way that we can work with persuasive writing is to use a strong mentor text And we talk a lot about mentor texts as a way to inspire writing in a certain form or genre, and just introducing our students to that kind of writing. So really, when we have a strong mentor text that we can share with our students and talk through, it's almost like having a co-teacher in the classroom, because the text is actually doing a ton of the teaching. We are just pointing out different things and noticing different aspects, but it's really a wonderful way to show that reciprocity between reading and writing, and that we continually learn as writers to develop different crafts and different ways that we can communicate. So it's a wonderful way to notice the details of written language and see what other authors have done. So that said, I have a wonderful mentor text to introduce you to. And through this mentor text, if you notice how the main character is using some persuasive language or techniques, just pop it into the chat box and we'll talk about it after. Okay, so think about your favorite book, either for children or adults, and take 2 minutes to write your own book review. You might use some of these wonderful points below, but share your book title and review in the chat box. And these are all the things that were mentioned on the other page, and make sure that you give it a rating. Thank you, Janet. That is hilarious. I love that book review. Little bit of intrigue there, a little bit of humor. Fantastic. Oh, Paperback Princess. Yeah, share your review with us, Lisa.
Aren't all princes supposed to be charming? I thought so too, but not in The Paper Bag Princess. In a land far away in a time long ago, Elizabeth meets a less than charming prince who challenges, questions, and insults her repeatedly. She uses her smarts to outwit him and reveal his true colors, and you'll never believe what the dragon does. If you love books about empowered girls, you'll love this book, 5 fire-breathing dragons out of 5.
Well done, well done.
Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. So we have we have a book about animals, Merry Christmas Squirrels. Love it. So we have real photographs and a great holiday story. We have looking for a book that will make you laugh so hard your tummy hurts. Great opening. You will love the Bad Kitty series. I love it. Clean underwear not included if you pee your pants laughing.
That's a high recommendation.
Absolutely. Okay, 15 dogs are given the ability to think like humans and live, and their lives expand in ways that they never knew were possible. Wow, that sounds so interesting. Wonderful. If you love everything colorful, you'll love Purple, Yellow, Green by Robert Munsch. Fantastic. It compares to no other book or movie. Okay, you guys are review masters. This is so great. Again, as Lisa mentioned earlier, we're going to show you in a couple of slides how to save the chat, but this is golden for you to share with your students, your reviews and other teachers' reviews from around the province. Very, very cool. Okay, and what we have brought up each of our times that we've got together about the writing instruction is this need for this explicit and sequenced instruction that helps them progress along a learning continuum. We've talked a lot about the gradual release of responsibility, where we go a lot from modeling to guided practice to some independent work with that scaffolding. And we're providing critical feedback, meaning explicit and timely feedback that's going to move our students forward with next steps, and tons of opportunities to write on topics that they care about. What we know is that if children aren't trying to write, they aren't learning to write. So tons of opportunity as well, for sure. And this wonderful quote that we keep bringing up by Lucy Calkins, teach the writer, not the writing.